it's vulnerable to be in touch with our desire.
Yeah.
And then to express that desire in a relationship with, whether romantic with a wife that now has rupture because of this porn addiction,
Yeah.
or with a community to where you have to be vulnerable about your needs and wants and desires in relationship. And so it becomes much easier for us to just, you know what, I'll just numb it through watching a bunch of Netflix, YouTube, and social media. And then whenever that doesn't do it anymore, now I'll go to pornography and get this twisted form of attachment, or this twisted form of love and connection that maybe resembles it on the surface and gives us this form of false elation. But then after that, we come down empty, and it's actually taken more from us and didn't satisfy what we were longing for in the first place. Welcome to the 423 podcast with 423 Communities, where we explore the intersection of faith, recovery, and restoration, equipping you to move from shame and addiction towards life in Christ. Hey, Joel, welcome back.
Hey, Ben. I think I should be welcoming you back.
Why me? Oh, I see. I meant to the podcast.
Oh.
I was last talking to Jera, our women's director.
That's right.
A female.
Yes, it is good to be back with you.
Yeah, we switched seats. Last podcast was an audio podcast, so you'll never know, but
you were in a different seat.
I was in your seat.
How did it feel? It's like the throne of power.
Yeah.
Did you feel like extra?
No.
Or was it just no?
No, it's actually pretty uncomfortable.
It is a very uncomfortable chair.
Yeah.
It looks comfortable, but it's...
Anyway.
Getting off topic.
Thanks for welcoming me back.
Yeah, you were out at a conference.
I was.
Virtually.
Yes. Yeah, up in the Northeast.
You traveled by Zoom to the Northeast.
Yeah, they flew me out on Zoom Airlines and let me speak at their conference. No, we got to partner with the Nathan Project, similar ministry organization to us up in the Northeast, running groups for men, women, betrayed spouses, struggling with unwanted sexual behavior.
Yep.
So it was just a cool opportunity to partner with them and meet some of their people. Yeah. Now I'm back from my long trek.
From your long trek. That's the cool part about life these days, is that we can be in so many different places. Soon we'll be able to teleport you to New Hampshire.
Like Star Trek.
Just Star Trek. You will materialize and get to go.
I'd rather not.
Yeah, do it, man. Go.
I won't be the first.
I'll do it.
Okay, I'll let you do it. Yeah,
that'd be great.
Miss your arm.
You know,
they'll lop it off on accident.
Good weight loss. Just part of me not go through all the way.
Teleport. Yeah. That's funny. That's good.
Well, how was the conference?
I mean, yeah, from the TV they projected me on, it seemed pretty good. Yeah. No, we got to speak at 2 sessions, and obviously I work with teens and college students, and so they're seeking to get my perspective, what it's like to engage teens on this journey of trying to overcome unwanted sexual behavior, and recognizing that at the surface of temptation and sin, there's actually core desires beneath that teens all have, and that actually all humans have. And so learning how to actually engage teens in their desires for the sake of bringing life, bringing goodness, not just falling into temptation.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And that's a topic that we talk a lot about in recovery. Also, just I think maybe specifically 423.
Yeah.
Going beneath the surface of behavior, right? And a lot of times we just look at the outward. We look at the exterior of what's going on inside someone's life, rather than spending that time to really unpack what is going on at a heart level.
Yeah.
And kind of going into those nuanced pieces.
No, totally. Yeah. That is kind of where we want to start and carry on that conversation, as I got to talk about it at that seminar, and bring it to you guys, our main audience, our main community, is to hopefully through this conversation show how our desires are actually good things that reflect us being made in the image of God, and how to, instead of trying to destroy desire, get rid of it, or dismiss it, how to engage it as a pathway to life with God.
Yeah, and I think this whole season has been kind of going deeper into why we do what we don't want to do, and we've talked about attachment bonds, we've talked about inner child recovery and internal family systems, and really undergirding that entire process is this construct of desire. And what does it mean for us? What does it mean for us to be creatures created inherently and innately with these desires that are ultimately good?
Yeah.
And created, what does it mean to be created in the image of God with all of these beautiful pieces of what it means to be human?
Yeah.
And then how those, because of the sinful, broken, fallen world that we inhabit, have been turned aside from union with God and one another towards lesser desires. And so I'd love to just kind of unpack a bit of what you taught at this conference.
Yeah, man.
Because you put together such a beautiful presentation with great ideas.
Oh,
and that is always something to be highlighted. So I would love if you just walk us through, especially when you're approaching teens or just, I guess it applies to all of us, whether you're 82 or 18.
It really does.
So just walk me through when you're talking about desire.
Yeah.
Where do you start?
Yeah. I think a lot of us, I'll put on our context hat. So a lot of us are, men listening right now who are struggling with some form of sexual addiction, porn addiction, something along those lines. Likely grew up in a Christian background, or you're currently in the church. And so in that context, a lot of us can kind of fall into this false dichotomy whenever it comes to engaging our desire. We either seek to destroy desire because we've been taught we can't trust it. Our desire is ultimately leading to sin because we are innately evil and bad. And that's only part of the picture.
Like total depravity.
Yes.
Right. Everything that comes out of you is something to be crushed.
Right. Yeah, that there is literally no redeeming or good parts of us. When in reality, that's not completely true because we are created in the image of God. Therefore, we are able to represent God. Right? That's what it means to be is made in his image. We are representatives of God. And so we have the capacity to do good, but also a lot of capacity to do evil. Yeah. And that's where that total depravity comes in. We as a man have no way of saving ourselves or making ourselves righteous enough in the eyes of God to be accepted and with him. So all that to say, right, we've been given this worldview. We likely believe it ourselves. And so I think it can be really easy to just throw desire out completely, to destroy it, to see any form of sexual desire or arousal as completely bad, unless it's within a marriage.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, like that response to destroy desire is because we have seen what misled desires can do.
Yeah.
Right. And so typically it's like, I think of a spider, right? It's like, oh, there's a spider. Oh, the spider bit me. Oh, I'm going to crush the spider.
Right.
And now every time I see a spider, I have this desire to crush it.
Yeah.
I've been bit before. And so there's this thing of when there is a consequence of behavior that desire has led to, our natural response is self-protection, right? Where we want to eliminate it completely because we assume that because that desire led to a bad result, therefore the desire at its core is bad. Yeah,
exactly. No, that's a perfect illustration for that. And right, we have seen the effects of sexual addiction in our lives. And so that makes us want to completely get rid of our sexuality at all. But in reality, we are sexual beings. Right? That is innate to every single person. Yeah. And so we need to form a new relationship with that part of ourselves instead of completely trying to destroy it. And so on the other side of that false dichotomy, so we have destroy desire. On the other side is serve desire, almost as the master of our life. That desire in of itself feels inevitable. That this is really the addiction mindset is might as well just give into it because, right, I can't defeat it. I can't overcome this on my own. So like, I'm just going to serve desire as the master of my life and seek to fulfill it through whatever means necessary. In our context, that's likely pornography, masturbation, sexual addiction, fill in the blank.
And I feel like there is a current cultural narrative that if you desire it, then it is the most true thing about you. And so serving the desire is actually stepping into your truest form of self.
Totally.
Which is why we are in absolute chaos as a society, because we are being driven about by lesser forms of desire that have been bent by a sinful nature.
Yeah.
And we're like, that's the truest form of me. And it's like, that's actually the least true thing about you.
Right.
Is this, wanton desire that's dragging you about.
Yeah.
Every whim and beck and call.
It's a very good observation. Yeah. The cultural narrative, not even inside the church, is you do you. Doesn't hurt anyone. That's fine. Seek to do it. And those are quotations, air quotations. If it doesn't hurt anyone, not including yourself. So anyway, all that to say, I think most of our listeners and I myself find myself just on this pendulum going back and forth between serving desire and then trying to destroy desire. When in reality, there's a different way forward. But we need to take a step back and begin to understand where our desires come from. Why is desire even part of our nature as human beings?
Yeah.
And how can we learn to honor our desire as a good innate part of our image of God, our imago Dei? And so, like we always like to talk about on this podcast, got to go back to Genesis, go back to the garden. As
it's a well-worn page.
It is, man. And you know what? We're doing our best Bible Project impression. So, no, literally though, I think a really important part, like we mentioned, it's really easy to get the idea of total depravity confused with being totally depraved. And I think that idea leaves out the importance of the first 2 pages of the Bible, the beginning of God's story.
Sure.
And so we are made in the image of God. We were made to be in the Garden of Eden, in the direct presence of God and others, naked and unashamed. It is not good for man to be alone. There's all of these aspects of what it means to be made in the garden and to be made in the image of God that create this imprint upon us, this collective memory of what we were created for. And so I think at the core, our desires resemble these 7 attributes, and we can kind of walk through them. But first and foremost, the chief desire that we have is for love.
Sure.
Second, safety, right? We want some sort of physical security, emotional, mental, spiritual security, to have our needs met on all levels. Connection, right? So the desire to be intimate with others, to be known by them, to be seen by them, to be, to belong. Identity, so to know who we are apart from what we do. Purpose, that's what we were made for. What we do has meaning and is significant. Autonomy, that's the idea that we were meant to rule alongside God and subdue the earth, to have dominion over it. And he gives us responsibility over creation to rule alongside him. And then lastly, healthy physical touch. From our inception, right? It says that God formed man from the dust of the ground, almost like this image of a potter forming a jar of clay, as scripture talks about. And then he breathes the breath of life into the man's nostrils and he becomes animated.
Beautiful.
And so we're just given this beautiful image where all of our needs are pretty much met. We have fruit abundantly upon the trees. There's no suffering. No life is being taken. We are walking with God in the garden in the cool of the day. We are naked and unashamed. That was our original habitat. That is what we were created for. That's how we've been designed and what we were meant to experience. And that's not what we experience now. But go on.
And I was just thinking of that picture of, I think a lot of times our perception of like the garden motif and like was kind of stripped of desire. Right? Like no desire for beauty. Like we think of desire as a bad word. Right. It's probably the title of every romance novel. That is.
That's a good point.
The desire of whatever.
As Christians
or whatever it is.
There's a negative connotation.
There's a negative connotation to desire because our desires have led us astray so much. That depravity.
We've been deceived.
That's within us. But when I pull back and I look at the garden experience with Adam and Eve created in this fresh world with an abundance of desire for perfect love, perfect connection, almost perfect love, almost perfect connection.
Very good.
A very good relationship with God where he's walking with them and they're delighting in the fruits of the land, and there's playfulness, and there is, Adam seeing Eve like born out of his side, and he's like, whoa, like delight and pure desire for the goodness that God created in that space. And yet it was carried with an innocence. It was carried with that kind of that childlike abandonment to what is good. And I think, I was at a retreat this weekend as well, and they were talking about the purpose of becoming innocent again. And Jesus says, like, unless you become like a child, you will not inherit the kingdom of God. You can't enter the kingdom of God. And I think sometimes we think of innocence and naivete as like, oh, you're just a little bit slow, or like you don't have, you don't have enough knowledge, you don't have enough intelligence, and that's why you're innocent. But in the garden, there was this robust, breathtaking desire for beauty and for goodness, and the ability to engage in desire without guile or without sinfulness. There was an innocence to this desire.
Yeah.
And it was not because they were, not intellectual enough or not wise enough.
Right.
But it was that they truly had innocence in relation to the desire that they had.
Yeah. No, that's a really
picture.
good point. Yeah, that is a really good point. And I think that's how in Genesis and kind of the image or the vision Jesus is speaking into, right? Like Adam and Eve, they only had a reference for what was good and bad according to what God said. And that's the pattern you see all throughout Genesis 1 is God created something and said it was good. And then God created humanity, it was very good. And then he creates man and he's alone, right? It's not good.
Yeah.
Right? So there's this, God is the one that's titling things as good, not good, or bad / evil. And then we see in Genesis 3, right? Eve is encountered by the serpent. Yeah. And she is fed some deceit that is playing into desire.
It's twisting, it's disordering that desire.
Yes, distorting it, disordering it, twisting it, taking this thing that was good and then creating some sort of distrust in who God is and who he says he is. And so then, I think it's Genesis 3:6. She looked at the fruit, saw that it was good for food, and desired to make one wise. And so she took of it and she ate it. And she gave it to her husband also. And then their eyes were opened and immediately they knew good and evil. And all of a sudden shame enters the picture.
Yeah.
And so what I want us to focus on there is this idea that the desire for wisdom is a good thing, right? That's what most of the Hebrew Bible is about. It's labeled as wisdom literature.
Yeah.
You read it so you become wise. But the means in which she attains wisdom, that is where sin enters the picture.
Yeah.
Instead of trusting in God to give her wisdom on how to live and to say this is good and this is not good, she instead took it for herself. And that's what Adam and Eve began doing, deciding, that's what humanity, that's what we do, deciding what is good and bad on our own.
Yeah.
And then we become innately deceived by desire, instead of desire leading us towards God and his ways.
Yeah.
And so we need to begin to restructure our relationship with desire, to no longer be deceived by it and deciding what's good and bad through our sinful hearts, but learning to align it with God's will for our life.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the image of the garden and where desire has its origin, and then also how desire has become twisted and disordered in our day-to-day life now.
So then so that sounds so complex, right? Like, like at its core it is, but then you're like, okay, then we need to reorient these disordered desires. We need to, it's kind of like, well, how the heck
do I do that?
Then, and that would be, that's kind of the natural question. Like the tension that we just created is that, we, because of that moment, have been woken up to the knowledge of good and evil. And we have been, now we have this depravity, this broken kind of bent ability to, like, I have a desire for this, and yet I just ooh, it's almost like, it's like watching a toddler ride a bike. It's like they're going, and then they start to wobble and then they just crash. And I feel like
that's the human heart,
the human experience. And this was, wrestling with addiction. It's like,
yeah,
I have a desire for goodness and I'm just, bam, and I ram into the wall.
Yep.
And you name whatever desire it is, like we've talked about with the, the inner child work and the attachment work, that, man, my desire for love and for connection, and for being with someone, is a good, holy, good desire designed by God for me to dwell in the land of beauty and goodness. And yet, addiction and wrestling with these unwanted behaviors hijacked that desire and like turned me into an addict who needs recovery.
Right.
And so how do we navigate reclaiming what God intended for good without destroying desire?
Right.
Or ultimately serving the desire. And I sometimes feel like, especially with recovery, a lot of people end up just serving desire because it feels impossible to reclaim.
Definitely.
Right? Especially for the guys that you work with who are younger, more single. You have a lot more single men and women working with Jera. But what does that process look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. Man, especially for teens and college students, the desires within them are actually literally stronger on average, right? Because of the hormones flooding their bodies. But that's how God has designed us. He has given us desire. And so instead of viewing desire in that false dichotomy like we keep talking about it, thinking of desire as a means. Desire is not the end goal. God has given us desire as a way to point us true north to him, right? But oftentimes, like we keep saying, it becomes twisted and distorted. And so we could do an entire Old Testament or Hebrew Bible survey of the theology, and to come to, like, I encourage you to go do that. It'll be really quick. But essentially what it's saying is humanity cannot save itself. Israel cannot fulfill what it was meant to do, to be a priesthood to all the nations and to bring all the nations back under God's rule or Yahweh's rule. Therefore, we need our hearts to be made new, right? We had hearts of stone, or we need our hearts to be circumcised. It's a pretty vivid imagery, but, or we need our hearts to have the law written upon it. Yeah. And so first and foremost, we need the better, truer human, Jesus, to come and fulfill what it means to be a human. And then we need to trust and believe in him, to surrender our lives over to him and say, okay, I no longer am going to trust what I do, but I'm going to trust you, Jesus, both as Savior, like you're going to take me from these disordered desires and sanctify me and transform me, but also you are Lord over my desires. And so I no longer get to say my desire is the end all be all. What, you do you no longer has any merit whenever it comes to following Jesus. So first we need to start from that foundation. Yeah. That Jesus is ultimately Lord over our lives, and we are meant to serve him. Yeah. And so I think that's where a lot of people stop. And so then we get into that false dichotomy. Okay, I have to destroy my desire. I have to submit to God, and God wouldn't want any of my desires to be true. Yeah. I think a lot of Christians fall into that, because whenever I talk about desire, especially with teens or high schoolers or even early college, it can be really foreign sounding. Like, God wants me to fulfill my desires. My desires feel so evil and wrong and dirty and impure. And maybe at their surface they are. Sure. But again, at the core, like we talked about, you are longing for good things, but they're becoming disordered, and so you're being deceived by them. So in reality, we need to actually become in tune with our desires. We need to lean deeper into what our desire is telling us. And so instead of dismissing, fleeing from temptation, to remove yourself from falling into the temptation. Put up boundaries. Go and get into the light. Don't stay in the dark. But after you do that, engage yourself with curiosity and ask, what do I truly want? Yeah. What am I longing for beneath this temptation? So again, curiosity is huge. I love the way Jesus almost challenges us, like you're talking about, become like a child. Yeah. Look at God as a father. a father who wants to give his children good gifts. And all throughout the Gospels, Jesus goes on to say, you do not have because you do not ask, or ask in my name and it will be given to you.
Yeah.
Or his first words in the Gospel of John, whenever he sees John's disciples beginning to follow him, he turns around and asks them, what do you want? What are you seeking? And so in the same way, I think Jesus is building this entire framework for us to engage with God as his children who need to begin to lift their desires or cry out their desires to him as a good father, entrusting them to him. That's vulnerable because you're setting yourself up for rejection. But that is the way that we need to begin to rework our relationship with desire and presenting those desires to God instead of ignoring them and destroying them and trying to align ourselves with some pseudo version of God who only hates your desire.
I think especially for men, women in our program, which deals pretty specifically with sexual addiction and reparation. I would say more so becoming holistically transformed and renewed, restored people. I think a lot of times, we tend to push away from desire because desire, like a serpent, has reached up and bitten us and caused damage. I think of my story, and it's that desire for love and connection and being seen and soothed got distorted and turned into sexually acting out and a desire for pornography and pursuit. And so that desire almost feels too untamed and unsafe to even approach.
It's like a fire, for sure.
It's like a fire. It's like, hey, that burned me. And so I need to suppress, remove myself from it, crush it, kill it, and become absent of all desire. Except for delight yourself in the Lord. It's like, wait, what? So, we try to do this cessationism and this, becoming so absent of all desire. I love this quote from C.S. Lewis from The Way to Glory. He says, it would seem that our Lord finds our desires not too strong, but too weak. We are half-hearted creatures fooling about with drink and sex and ambition when infinite joy is offered to us. And like an ignorant child who wants to go on making mud pies in the slum because he cannot imagine what is meant by the offer of a holiday at the sea, that we are far too easily pleased. And I think with, embracing embracing the desire that God has placed in my heart to be fully known, to be fully loved in innocence and affection and abandonment to the joy that's behind that. It's like I became far too easily pleased with lesser forms of that desire when beneath that surface is the offer of beautiful joy in relationships. More mirroring what I have now with Rachel, with my wife, of being fully known and fully loved in that space. Now I can engage in those desires for love and connection and being soothed from a place of health and love. And that so far surpasses the lesser forms of desire that were rooted in my sexual addiction.
No, that's a great example. Thank you for illustrating that with your own life. And C.S. Lewis, when in doubt, just go to him. He has a good quote for just about anything, and he's going to put it way better than we ever could. And so I'm very grateful for, all his work. But I think it's really easy for us to be burnt by desire, like you're talking about. Some break in attachment, like we've talked in the past. Some inner child was formed that told us or taught us a belief about the world that relationship is unsafe. And so we seek to have that desire fulfilled through some pseudo substitute that actually leaves us more calloused and dull and detached from life than we began, i.e. porn. And so it's vulnerable to be in touch with our desire. And then to express that desire in a relationship with, whether romantic with a wife that now has rupture because of this porn addiction, or with a community to where you have to be vulnerable about your needs and wants and desires in relationship. And so it becomes much easier for us to just, I'll just numb it through watching a bunch of Netflix, YouTube, and social media. And then whenever that doesn't do it anymore, now I'll go to pornography and get this twisted form of attachment, or this twisted form of love and connection
Yeah.
that maybe resembles it on the surface and gives us this form of false elation, but then after that we come down empty, and it's actually taken more from us and didn't satisfy what we were longing for in the first place. So these are some big frameworks that over time, hopefully you can begin to renew your mind around, to hopefully see the world through. But I want to give a more practical tool or maybe framework, like a few step process for guys to work through in the midst of, okay, I feel temptation rising up within me. And so, to do that, I think, you're in that scenario where you feel it, the arousal in your body, the desire to go into that cycle of addiction. You feel the preoccupation. What do you do? So like I mentioned already, we want to use curiosity. If you just try to run from it and dismiss it and don't engage it, it's going to sit and grow in the background of your mind, or maybe the forefront. You have to face the darkness. You have to engage it. And so to be curious towards it and to actually think about, okay, let me think about those 7 desires: love, safety, connection, identity, purpose, autonomy, and touch. So try to remember those if you can. Write those down. I said them slowly. Thank you. I've said it a few times at this point to where I can. But okay, so run through that list in your mind and ask, what am I longing for beneath this temptation? What am I seeking to have fulfilled right now? And learning to acknowledge and identify desire. Don't dismiss and ignore. Acknowledge and identify it. Name it. Say it out loud in the moment. I think that'd be really powerful. And then beyond that, beyond just labeling and identifying, learn to honor that desire. Recognize, God, you have made me in your image. You have created me to be in the garden with you. This is a good desire at the core. I actually want to be loved. I want to experience your perfect love, Christ. But it's presenting in a distorted way as sexual temptation, right? Because we formed ourselves in that way, or because of our propensity for sin in the flesh. So acknowledge and identify it, name it, and then honor it as a good part of yourself. And then lastly, we come to kind of this fork in the road. Instead of going for a pseudo form of fulfillment by pornography or sexually acting out, you can either, one, seek to fulfill it through God's design. So if you are longing for connection, call up one of your brothers in group and just tell them what's going on. Start to talk to them. Be bold, be vulnerable, and open up about what's happening. Go to your wife, express your need to her. We as men hate to do that. We hate to admit that we have needs and desires, but say, hey, can I just have a hug right now? Can I just be held right now? Or to your brother, to your, whoever it might be. So if you are able to, whenever you identify one of those desires, seek to fulfill it in God's design and align it with his will, go for it. Do it. Write down a list of ways you can do that for each desire. I think that'd be really practical to have on hand. But a lot of times, as we've talked about, we are no longer in the garden. Sin has entered the world. There's brokenness in the world. There's going to be many times where that desire has to go unmet or be furloughed until we are in a proper context.
Because I think that's a statement I've heard before of like, well, God created me with these desires for sex.
Right.
And so what's wrong with fulfilling them? And I think that's the lesser form of engaging that desire.
Right.
And, I think with an addiction to like pornography, because we've talked about that there is a powerfully addictive force to the sexual component with pornography.
Definitely.
And with the acting out. And sometimes it's hard to extricate the desire from the behavior. That literally you can have a craving and a longing for looking at pornography, for instance, and underneath that surface is that you need a hug from a brother. Now, pulling out, which those don't mesh. In your mind, you might be thinking, No, I want to look at this. No, you don't. That's a lesser form of that desire being fulfilled,
Right.
because it's been hijacked by the addictive properties underneath the surface. You were made for so much more than that lesser form of gratification,
Right.
and made for connection and goodness and intimacy that is outside of this addictive force.
Yeah.
And so underneath that powerful drive and the addictive property of like a pornography addiction is really a longing to have that desire fulfilled.
Yeah.
So learning to identify, learning to ask what it is that your heart is truly wanting in that moment, which may look completely different than what that addiction is driving you towards.
Yeah.
Like completely different.
Right.
Right. And so that's why we also need to ask those questions and dive into that space. And one of the things that I don't think we hit on enough is that we were also created to see and enjoy beauty.
Yeah.
Right? A part of it, and that's maybe not in the list of core desires, but we were created to see the world and to see the sunrise and the stars and the heavens. And, Adam's expression when he saw Eve formed out of his side, when he woke up, is like, wow, like this is beauty.
Yeah.
Like we're meant to engage beauty. And this is a very practical anecdote, but one of the things that a lot of men and women wrestle with is this idea of second looks, right? And this is very practical, but I hear a lot of wives, my husband is just always distracted by women, and men are like, yeah, like when I started noticing, like, man, I see beauty and I'm just drawn towards it and I can't stop looking at it. And at the core of that is a God-created design to see, to notice beauty, and to ultimately glorify the creator of that beauty.
Right.
But our lesser desire has said, I see beauty and I'm going to serve beauty. And they go towards lust and sexualizing, objectifying the object of beauty and objectifying it in a lesser form.
Right.
Or they gouge their eyes out because they want to destroy this desire for beauty and goodness.
Yeah.
And so that's when you move forward in health, and this is no license to look at a beautiful person and objectify them and say, I'm just enjoying beauty. What are you talking about? There is a moment in the human heart when I can see beauty and I can say, God, you have created me for beauty, to enjoy beauty and to long after beauty and goodness.
Yeah.
And God, I praise you. And it pulls us back to the creator of those good things for us.
Yeah.
Rather than serving the beauty through objectification or crushing the soul to where we no longer have any appeasing value in beauty and goodness.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good principle that you bring up. And for our listeners, that's a fine balance. And something, if you're in a place where you're actively falling below your line on a regular basis, I would encourage you to wait, to engage that part of you.
Yeah.
Try on the framework, try it on, think about it, chew on it, meditate on it. But if you're in your first month of recovery, I would say sticking with Jesus' teaching and gouging out your.
Well, and that's the important part of when there is still the addiction.
Yeah,
that's right. That's why we shoot for 90 days to reclaim the pathways of the brain, and we want to have sobriety. When there is that addiction present, it makes it really difficult for us to engage desire in a holy and good way.
Right,
because we are literally neurobiologically and behaviorally trained to take that object and force it into the serve category.
Right. Yeah.
And so there is part of that you need to destroy this pathway of addiction before you can engage in the beauty and goodness.
Yes.
But it does help us when we see that beauty and we feel that craving, we can then ask, which is an interrupter in that preoccupation of identifying what is it that I am truly longing for in my desire that's causing me to want to take this beauty for myself.
I agree. No, and I'm not saying that you should never engage in that. I encourage that as well, to reframe that. Yeah. To instead of only seeing beauty as opportunity for lust, to reframe whenever I look upon beauty, in reality, you can be grateful. You can be thankful. You can say, God, thank you for creating this beautiful image of God, this beautiful daughter in your image.
Which pulls it from lust and objectification and turns it into glorifying the creator.
Right. Which I think we should do.
Yeah.
And then a genuine like overflow of love, begins to well up within us for God and for his images.
Yeah.
And so, if you can't look at a woman and go to a point, or an attractive person, male or female, and it turns into objectification for taking for yourself, I think that is the distinction of lust versus seeing beauty and acknowledging it.
Absolutely.
If you can't do that, hold off. But this is a process.
Yeah.
This is definitely a long process. It's taken years in my own journey to begin to do that consistently.
Yeah.
Instead of taking lustful second looks. And so
it's
a process, but God is faithful to transform and to sanctify.
Yeah.
But one last word on kind of that 4-part process that I was mentioning, right? So like Joel was just talking about too, of like acknowledging the desire, identifying it, so naming what it is, seeking to fulfill it if you can. And then last but not least is learning to grieve and lament whenever that desire has to go unmet.
Yeah.
And so even like we were talking about just now, if you have to, push off that desire to objectify beauty, grieve the fact that, whatever core desire in your life can't be met right now. So for a lot of single people, seeking out, intimacy that comes in marriage, whether physical, emotional, or spiritual, learning to recognize that just in general, on this side of eternity, we will never be complete. Yeah. We will never have all our desires fully met. And so learning to, acknowledge that is a good thing, that God actually wants you to have that desire fulfilled, but in his own time and way. And learning to, like Jesus in the garden, right? Say, Father, you are able to do everything. So recognizing God and his position over him in that current form. Would you take this cup from me, right? Would you make a different way that I don't have to go through this excruciating sacrifice on the cross? But last, he resolves to, but not my will be done, your will be done.
Yeah.
Jesus doesn't withhold what he wants. He doesn't put a disclaimer or say like, he just vulnerably says, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
But God, if this is your will, if this is the only way, I will do it.
Yeah.
And so that can be a model for us to lament our desire being unmet, but also recognizing that God cares for those desires and honors them too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So acknowledging and identifying, honoring desire, and then seeking to fulfill it in God's design, or lamenting and grieving desire going unmet. Hopefully that can be a helpful framework as you engage temptation and sexual desire and just desire in general for our members. Yeah.
And then again, one of the best ways to identify and unpack our desires is in the context of community.
Yeah.
Right. This is what we do every week, is that we go into that room with these brothers or sisters in our communities, and we say, man, this is all the ways that I walked through the world this week. Mm-hmm. And this was where my heart was leaning and drawn towards, and all these pivot points. And then I have a whole community of witnesses that can say, let's unpack this and explore that, and what was really beneath the surface, and where did that come from?
Yeah.
And when we're able to fully know ourselves and fully submit ourselves to the work of God within us, we can slowly redeem those desires that have been disordered and misshapen, so that we can glorify God in them rather than self.
Yeah. Well said.
Yeah.
Good stuff, man.
Yeah.
I desire to end this podcast now.
I do too.
Thanks for listening. If you want to learn more about 423 Communities or get connected with us, go to 423communities.org and follow us at the links in the show notes or the description below.